So before we actually open up a terminal, I just quickly want to go over the nomenclature surrounding Bash and shells and Unix. And so I've put together this very short presentation. I've just titled it Unix and Shells and Bourne, oh my, ZSH. And that's a play on words with the oh my ZSH, if any of you know about the ZSH environment or community. That's kind of their tagline, is the oh my ZSH. Right, and this is for this course, Bash Commands and Scripting from Beginner to Expert. So the first part here, I have put together a flowchart kind of describing how Unix developed and where shells came from, and then where Bash comes in. Then at the end of this presentation, I have a table with all the features compared between the various shell languages. So let's get into the flowchart. And so the first concept here is shell. And the shell is a computer program which exposes an operating system services to a human user or other program. And so it's both a command and scripting language. Then we have Unix, or Unix-like. And these are operating systems that conform to, or nearly conform to, any version of the single Unix specification which was developed at Bell Labs in the 1970s. And so the first shell for Unix systems was the Thompson shell. That was developed by Ken Thompson, also at Bell Labs, between 1971 and 1975. The shell that came after that was the Bourne Shell, and that binary is typically denoted with SH. This shell was developed by Stephen Bourne at Bell Labs in 1989, and actually this SH binary is still found on most Unix or Unix-like systems today. It's similar to Bash, but has a smaller feature set than Bash. Now, from this Bourne shell, there were a bunch of shells that kind of followed suit, so I'll go over a few of them. One of them was the Olmquist Shell, which is ASH. This was developed by Kenneth Olmquist in the late 1980s, and today it's the shell of FreeBSD and NetBSD. There was also the Korn Shell, or KSH, and that was developed by David Korn at Bell Labs in the late 1980s. And then we have the Born Again Shell, or what this course is focused on, Bash. This was developed by Brian Fox for the GNU project in 1989, and it's the standard shell on most Linux systems. However, in years of late, that has started to change slightly. There's nowadays Dash, ZSH, there's also CSH, TCSH, and many more. So when I said in years of late that it's beginning to change from Bash, we've seen in 2020 that Mac has officially shifted to ZSH, and nowadays on some Linux systems, Dash is the shell language of choice. And really the only difference between Dash, ZSH, and Bash are a few additional features that the new shells have above Bash. But 99% of the commands and behavior among all those shells is very similar, if not identical. And so here I've left a detailed table comparing some of the most popular shells and what available functionalities they have. This was actually from a Stack Overflow post, which I've put in the bottom there. And even from there, I believe it came from the GNU project or a similar website. But I'll leave this presentation in the show notes, so you'll have this table and these links to all the sources. And note that it is 2 pages, and you can look into those details. So now that we've got a broad overview of what Unix is, what a shell is, and where Bash fits into the family of shells, we can get started in the next lesson by opening up our first terminal and looking at a broad overview of how to actually use and navigate in the terminal.